We've done a really good job so far at polishing up our header, so now it's time to take a look at the bottom side of things and create our footer. Let's first head on over to the design file just so we can get a reminder of what exactly it is that we'll be building. Alright, and here I am in the design file, and we're going to be creating this part right here. This green bar at the bottom, this is going to be our footer and is where we can display some extra information and links to our users. This is another really common element on the web, on almost all websites, so you're probably familiar with the concept of what a footer is. So let's just take a second to think about how we're going to create this based on the grid system that we just learned in the previous video. Well, first off, we're going to have a grid container that's going to represent this entire footer. So the entire footer is going to be a grid container, and then we're going to split that into two grid item containers, one being the item container for our links over here, and then another for our social media icons over on the right. This will make it really easy for us to space these out as we see here. Then for our social media icons, this is going to be an item container with a direction of column, and that's how we'll get them to stack on top of each other. And then our links over here, this will be a grid item container with a direction of row. Then inside of there, each of these columns themselves will be a grid item container because they contain then the individual items that will be our links. Now these item containers will also then have a direction of column, giving us the stacked layout for each of the columns and their links. Let's go ahead and jump on into the code editor and get started. Alright, so I'm here in the code editor, and the first thing we'll do is go into our UI folder and let's create a new file, and let's call this our footer.js. We're going to start off by building this a little bit more verbose than we normally would, just so that we can really illustrate the grid concepts that's going on here. And then in the next video, we'll go ahead and clean this up in a more programmatic way. But for now, I just want us to focus on the concept of the grid system. Let's go ahead and start off though by importing some of the components that we'll need to create our footer. So we'll start off, of course, with our import of React from React. And then let's import the grid from @material-ui/core/grid. We'll import the typography component from Material UI. And then let's go ahead and import and destructure out make styles from Material UI -core or /core/styles. And let's also go ahead and import, we'll destructure out the link component from Gatsby. We can also come underneath here and let's import the Facebook icon. I'll just call it Facebook from, we'll go up a directory, images, and then facebook.svg. And we'll do the same for Twitter and Instagram. All right. And now we can come under here and let's create our constant of use styles equal to make styles called as a function. And we'll pass it a function that's going to receive the theme. And we'll go ahead and use parentheses to automatically return, and we'll return an object. And this will be our style object. We'll just go ahead and open that up for now. And then we'll come underneath and let's export default function footer and open that up. Inside of here, let's create our const of classes equal to use styles called. So now we'll have access to all the classes we define in our style object, and then we can return and use parentheses for a multi-line statement. We'll start this off just with the HTML footer tag, just so the page knows this is explicitly our footer. And now inside of here, let's go ahead and create a grid container and open that up for all the contents of our footer. Now inside of the grid container that represents our entire footer, I said that we're going to need one section or one grid item, or in this case, it'll be an item container because it's also going to contain other items. We'll need one of those for all the links and another one for our social media icons. That will make it really easy to align everything. Okay, so the first one that we'll create for our links is just going to be a grid item container. Okay, we'll open that up. And then adjacent to that, so not inside of it, but adjacent to it, next to it, we'll then create another grid item container. And we'll open that up. And so this will be for our links. I'll go ahead and make this a comment. Oh, I don't know why that's not commenting. That'll be for our links. Well, let's see. Links, and there we go. So this will be for our links. And this will be for our social media icons. Go ahead and I'll comment that out as well. All right, and if you remember from the design file we just went over, I said that to get our social media icons stacked on top of each other like we see, we're going to set a direction of column onto here. So now all the grid items inside of this item container will be aligned vertically. Okay, so this one will be easy. We can just come inside of here and let's add a grid item. And now this will just be a grid item because inside of here, we'll just have an image with a source of Facebook and then an alt of Facebook as well. We can go ahead and close that off. And then let's go ahead and duplicate that 2 more times. And again, we'll do this in a more programmatic and reusable way in the next video. I just want to be really explicit about the grid concepts that we're using here. Okay, so then this will be a source of Twitter, and then this will be Instagram. All right, and so that should get our social media icons set up. Now, before we go ahead and add all of our links, let's think about how we want this grid item container, the one containing our social media icons, and the one containing our links, how we're going to get them spaced apart, as we saw in the design file. We have the links all the way on the left, and then we have a bunch of space, and then the social media icons all the way on the right. So the way that we'll do this, since we want to align these 2 items, we'll need to align them with the parent grid container. So the main grid container will use the justify prop. Because since this is a grid container without a direction prop, that means it's defaulting to a direction of row. And so since we want to space them out from left to right, that means that that is the main axis of the direction row, and so we'll use the justify prop. All right, and we can set a justify of space between. And that is going to go ahead and put all the space between our 2 items here. All right, and we'll see a small caveat with this in just a second once we see it in the browser, but that's what we need for now. All right, so now inside of this item container for our links, and remember this is going to be from left to right since there's not a direction specified, so it's a direction of row by default, we'll now need to create another grid item container for each of our columns. So we'll create a grid item container direction of column. And now this will be our actual container for the links themselves that will now be stacked from top to bottom. And we'll go ahead and copy this and paste that 2 more times so that we have the 3 different sections of links that we saw from the design file. So now inside of each of these columns, we can add a grid item for each of the links. And the first grid item is going to be for the section or the column header, or title rather. And so in this case, let's use a typography component, and this will be a variant of H5. And we'll go ahead and we'll need to customize it a little bit, but we'll do that in a second. And we'll open that up, and inside, let's give it the title, Contact Us. All right, and now let's go ahead and copy this grid item. We'll paste 2 more inside of here, but now the variant is going to be a body 1 variant. It'll be body 1 for this one as well. And under Contact Us, we'll first have the phone number. So we'll just go ahead, I'll put in an example phone number here. And then below that, we have an email. So I'll just use this example email. All right, so now let's go ahead and do the same for each of these other columns. So I'll go ahead and I'll just copy these grid items to save a little time here. Again, we'll clean this up in another video, but let's now change the title of this to customer service. And then here, this is going to be contact us, the actual page contact us. And then this will be my account, and we'll just leave it at that. So we'll come down and we'll do the last one. And this will be the information section. And this will contain the privacy policy, and then the terms and conditions. All right, so let's go ahead and we can save this. And now we need to go into our layout.js folder. And just like we imported the header, we need to import the footer from /footer. And now we can come underneath, and where we previously had this old footer, let's go ahead and delete this and render our actual footer. But let's actually not put it here. Let's put it outside of this div, and we'll put our footer. All right, so let's go ahead and save this. It's not going to look perfect yet. We'll have to clean it up a little bit, but I just want to illustrate all these concepts first. So flip on over, and we see we've got our information over here. Again, this doesn't look exactly how we expected just yet, but I'll explain exactly why. And then here are our social media icons, but we can't see them because they're white on a white background. So let's take a quick break, and we'll go ahead and clean this up and style it in the next video.